Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Cowboy Bebop Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously Spike is thinking about the past. It's interesting, just as Julia's finding out he's alive last episode, he gets, nostalgic about the past while the ship is getting repaired, because Jet continues to be the cheapskate that's, buying the wrong parts and doing all the things he can to get the ship running, but it's right, they're always in the black, and he's also a cheapskate, but I wonder, is it really just being a cheapskate, or is it just being we really don't have the money to be spending like that? So she was yeah, he thinks, Mel is going to try and, upsell him on stuff. So he's I'm just gonna find a part on my own. But he sends Spike out on the lookout for a bounty after a guy that's kind of almost like a cult leader type of thing that's killed 3,000 people with what he's done. And he's got a new identity, Londes. At least Radical Ed points him in that direction, which I do believe, I could be mistaken, I think this is our first Ed related stuff, right, in the show. Which, because I know for a while that was always people's thing of wait, there's no Ed, and it's okay. But, because the little I remember about Ed, I'm how is that going to translate to live action? Because, Ed's Ed's weird. How do you translate that to live action? I guess you got to lean into, Ed's eccentricness in certain regards. I'm curious about, how weird they will translate Ed. Once again, because that's an anime thing, too. I don't know how that translates. I'm curious to see and find out, but regardless, Spike ends up following the lead. And that was I really liked how that thing happens when, was it Beatrice? On the computer screen would, bounce from screen to screen. I was oh, I actually like that. As she's talking to, Spike, and it's just, you have to go through this thing. It's going to be about 90 minutes. I was yeah, Spike was almost yeah, I'm not doing that. And then it turns out he's stuck in, I felt like something was off the moment he left, and then the moment, he ran into Julia, I was why is she wearing that specifically? Because I was it seems like that's something specifically tied to a memory of Spike, because to be fair, he hasn't seen her in 3 years, so, why would she pop up wearing something you're familiar with? That was that's weird, why are you wearing that? Anna wouldn't tell you where Spike was, would she? Just because for both of your sake, she wouldn't do that. Because it's yeah, more people that know Spike is alive, because that could easily, because I also don't think Julia would come find him like that. Well, I had to take that back. Because I was about to say, that would, because also she wouldn't even know where to begin looking, but Anna is a good place, but I think Anna wouldn't tell because of that. Yeah, everyone would end up dead because of it, so she's doing it for Julia and Spike's sake. But, sadly, he's trapped in this loop that basically we end up finding out there actually is no Dr. Londes. It's actually a rogue AI program that's basically, it's meant to help people move past stuff, but basically in its attempt to help people, it killed people. They shut it down, and this whole bounty and myth and stuff like that was just some BS created to throw people off of the truth. It basically was a rogue program that basically killed 3,000 people, and now it's kind of come back and reinvented itself as Dr. Londes, and anyone coming looking for the bounty gets put in Spike's circumstances of, you get put under this AI thing that kind of traps you in it puts you in a VR loop, basically makes you loop and your emotional tether until you completely let it go, because that way it's basically the thing that keeps your consciousness holding on. If you can sever that thing that's kind of your emotional linchpin, then basically it has access to your entire consciousness, and it can I guess just wipe it out, just basically kill you, because in its mind it's helping you, but it's kind of going rogue and just, it's kind of killing you in the process. And so for Spike, it's simply, his emotional tether is Julia, and he's trying to save her, and he keeps getting caught in this loop, and at the end of it all, she ends up dying. And not just her, he ends up dying too at Vicious's hand. So just kind of caught in this loop. And even though he could tell things are wrong, it doesn't, because I think he can tell on some level, but it's trapping him in enough of it where it's right, it doesn't have to make sense. But it's also because he doesn't want it to make sense. Julia's in front of him. He hasn't seen her face to face in years, because earlier in the episode he threw away one of the only pictures he had of her, because he was trying to let her go, but now when she was right in front of him, he couldn't, no matter what. She's just leave, let me go. He's no, I'm not going anywhere without you, I'll protect you. He's you can't. He'll find, I'll find a way, And he did say that, that line again about Jet. It's like, yeah, he's an ex-cop, he'll help. But it's like, yeah, he'll probably, does he know what you were and what you are? And he's like, no, he'll probably kill me the moment he does. But it's like, yeah, the truth is, it was bound to land at some point in time. So, but Spike's trying to, he's like, I can get you off this planet. Like, we can disappear. I can protect you. It's like, you can't trust Vicious. Like, he can't keep you safe because he is who he is. But she's, because the AI is trying to get Spike to let her go, it's like, no, like, he will find us, he will kill me, and he will kill you. Like, this is the only, like, and then, like, the last words out of her mouth when he kills her in the hotel room is, you killed me, trying to be like, this is all your fault. And then when she confronts Spike later on, when he's like gunning through all the syndicate people, it's like, no, I'm gonna keep you safe. It's all gonna be okay. Trust me, it's all right. But she's like, no, like, you think Vicious is the one? Like, Vicious might be a killer, but he might do some bad things, but he's my husband, and you're the bad guy. She even made a reference of like, yeah, you're the one that tried to steal stole your best friend's girl. So I wonder, like, was her and Vicious together? Well, it was like, that's in reference to, I guess, someone else. Once again, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but I'm like, I guess, like, Julia was, like, his best friend's girl, and then after that person potentially died, or he just stole. I don't think she was referencing Vicious, and they're like, oh, your best friend. I think they were partners, but I don't know if they were, like, best friends or not, but. So I don't know if it's like she was with Vicious, and then went with Spike, Fearless, and then eventually went back to Vicious, or, was there someone else in the picture, then Spike, then Vicious? Either way, she's just kind of talking about the fact is that you're the psychopath. Like, you're the villain in this story, not Vicious. And it's like, because Spike, she's like, basically, you can change your name, but it doesn't erase who you are and what you've done. She references a thing where he killed a lot of people. It's like, even that little girl. So I'm like, I'm wondering, is the thing that she's referencing what ultimately made him want to leave the Syndicate, which immediately made the Syndicate go like, now we got to pop you. So I'm wondering if it was something of that nature. I guess because we get little glimpses of him and Julia early days, like when kind of falling for him. Who knows if that necessarily was like the first meeting or just at least maybe the first time they fell in love with each other. But he's stuck in this loop, and just as it's about to like absorb his cut his emotional, like it's almost like the numbers are reaching up. Luckily, Jet had followed him, found out like where he was because he couldn't get in contact with Spike, and found Spike in his circumstances. So he couldn't get Spike out on his own. I butchered Spike's name there. But the guy that's trying to stop the AI is helping, and the more Spike was fighting against it, like, no, I'm gonna keep you safe, I'm not gonna let you go, Julia, the lower the number was getting. But this thing is adapting to him to force him in a situation to finally let his emotional tether go. And so Jet has to go to Earth to destroy the mainframe, and he's trying to, like, that's the only way to kind of wake Spike up is to go after the mainframe that's there, and obviously means get back to the ship, which does the whole Mel and Faith thing, which I love. Like, she got the railgun, it's like, oh, that's a scam. It's like, no, it's not a scam, it's pretty cool. And just like, first Jet, then Spike, and then Mel being like, oh, it's a scam. It's like, why does everyone keep saying that? But it's like, yeah, your boss, he's not my boss. Your boyfriend? No, he's just, he's just a guy that's thinking you're going to, screw him out of it. She's like, oh, there's nothing that's still here, or stealing here except for you. I'm like, yo! I was like, I didn't remember Faye's love life that might be something they're doing just for the live action, because I don't really remember her love life at all from the original anime, but she connects with Mel, and I think probably the first time she's been in an actual relationship with someone, that she's aware of. She opens up to Mel about the fact is, I'm like, yeah, that was the first time I was like, oh, I was like, wait, first orgasm ever. It's like, oh, that, and just even Mel's like, that's sad. And she's like, well, I don't remember, like, since waking up from cryo, which it's been 2 years. That's 2 years of not knowing who you are and reinventing yourself. Well, it's hard to reinvent yourself when you didn't even know who you were before, but just being Faye Valentine, she's been that for 2 years. And so Mel's like, but regardless of not knowing who you are, I can see your soul. It's still kind of messed up that you go 2 years without a orgasm. And she's like, yeah, I know. But regardless of it all, she looks into Faye's eyes, and she can tell, like, I can tell you have a good soul. And I love Jet comes back and is like, yo, we gotta save Spike. Like, really? She's like, oh, you're not gonna knock? It's the engine room. It's like, very interesting place to do your thing. But it was interesting going back to Earth and seeing, like, the moon under the circumstances. Once again, I guess it's just background stuff that you never get an answer to. Like I say, because I don't remember Cowboy Bebop doing too much world building. Like, I think you get little stuff here and there. You're like, oh, what was that about? What was that about? Once again, it's like 26 episodes and then a one-off, like it's a one... I don't know if that... I have to actually look into it. I'm curious. Is it actually 2 13-episode seasons, or was it just a 1 26-episode season? Because different shows will do that. Like, it's always interesting, like, what anime seasons can look like. Got a whole, like, 26 episodes could be a whole season, whereas in some other things, it's like, oh, yeah, that's 2 seasons, because, you know, anime can range about that. 13 is usually, like, the cutoff point in some anime. Not all anime, but that to be, like, a season or so. Just interesting to think about, but it's like, the moon's like that. We're not going to get answers to that. Luckily, that railgun came in handy at the very end because it helped him destroy the mainframe, so it all worked out in the end. Just when it was about to strike 99, and Spike's like, okay, I'll let you go. But I was like, I don't think that I'll let you go. I figured it'd be a situation. I immediately figured it was what it was, but it's like, I'll let you go, but only after I make sure you're okay and you're safe. Like, I took it immediately as something like that, but Spike wakes up. And obviously he feels like crap afterwards. And, like I said, the entire bounty was a fake, and plans on, like, so, if I ever get my hands on Radical Ed, I'm going to make him pay. And it's just like, and Spike's just like, oh, I'm going to rest. And it's like, yo, so, what did you see in there? And he's like, I don't remember, which he remembers everything. You know, once again, it's just interesting, like, just when Faye finds love, it's just at the same time, like, Spike is, which interesting parallels of, like, both of them struggling with their own identities and finding their way forward when the past is haunting them. In the case of Faye, not having a past, which is haunting in its own right, but Spike being weighed down by his past and his willingness to think he can let her go, but this just reconfirmed it for him that, no, I'll never let you go, because we find out in the, in the end of it, just before it all got shut down, he was like, no, I'll never let you go. And Vicious is the last one standing, and Vicious puts a bullet in him, and you're like, huh, how very foreshadowing in certain regards that would play out that way. But I think it's just symbolic of, like, Spike being like, I will never let you go. So I think it reconfirmed in his mind of, like, I can't let things stay the way they are until I can make sure you're okay if you're away from Vicious. That, you know, because I've traveled the unit, like, I've traveled the system, and I've never found anyone that made me feel the way you do. You've made me feel. So, very Romeo and Juliet-esque story that they've got. I mean, you could see a lot of parallels in that regard. But Faye, you know, and Mel, it's like, oh, like, can I call you sometime? It's like, yeah, but, you know, you got to figure out who you are out first, because she's still in that in-between lane, and it's like, oh yeah, like, take the railgun, let it be a reminder of me. So it's interesting how their stories parallel each other, like, even in just this storyline alone. But I think this probably reconfirmed, like, it makes me wonder in this moment, does he still regret not putting Vicious down when he had an opportunity? Because he doesn't know about everything between Vicious and how he is towards Julia. But I think this sets the stage for everything going forward of, like, I've got to save her from him. Like, even if it costs me my life, as long as she's okay, as long as I'm able, I'll protect her. Or at the very least, it'll be like, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to, I've waited too long. 3 years, and I've never been able to let you go. I'm not going to let you go now. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. And I love that. It's like, are you living in the real world? And they do play the outro song again at the end. Because I meant to bring it up, because I heard it in episode 3. I was like, wait, had they played this before? I was like, no, it definitely would have caught my attention if they had played it before, so they hadn't. Because I watch a little bit of the credits at the end. You'd be completely, like, man, like, Netflix, you never realize it sometimes, like, how fast Netflix is to be like, next episode. I guess, like, post-credit stuff has always screwed me up a little bit with other stuff that, like, I'm always paranoid about skipping the credits sometimes. Network stuff, not as much, but, like, once again, Marvel is, like, forever screwed me and so many people forever that, because it's like, is there going to be, like, a post-credit thing or something? But aside from, like, putting all that aside, it's still nice to hear that song. I think episode 3 is the first time they played it, and this is the only other episode that they've played it like that. So I was like, oh, it's such a good song too. I was like, because like when they played it the first time, I was like, it takes me back, dude. It takes me back to an anime I don't remember that well, but I remember hearing that song. I was like, oh, that's so good. The music for this series has always been so. Once again, it's just like that blending is always such a like. I mean, the thematic. It fits the theming and so well because of that noir type of feel and vibe. Like, it's like jazz music. It's like, I'm not a jazz person. Surprisingly, my dad is, though. I've just never been into jazz, but I can appreciate it just like how good. Like I said, I'm not like I don't know if I wouldn't say my dad's probably a jazz nerd, because I remember him asking me once, like, oh, do you like jazz? I'm like, I've never really listened to it, but I can get behind jazz. It sounds beautiful, but I've just never really, like, dedicated my time for it. It's just never been the musical genre, like, I've kind of latched onto, you know, so. Tensions and all that aside, like I said, I'm interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.